You choose to remain silent then. Perhaps at first, it wasn't even a conscious choice. It was an act of self preservation and frustration that led to the experiment. You simply stopped. You halted the repeated texts. You ceased striking up every discussion. You ceased using your own words, effort, and energy to fill the hole. You fell silent, and you anticipated a change or a shift to occur during that silence. You probably didn't anticipate the psychological upheaval it would cause. You are now witnessing what appears to be a full blown spiral, a maddening downpour of fear, bewilderment, and despair that is making you both face the horrifying force of silence. There is more to what you are seeing than a simple reaction. It's completely falling apart, and it all started when you decided to keep quiet. This is the question we don't often ask, though. Is it poison or is it power? We are not here to provide you a straightforward, manipulative strategy today. Our goal is to remove the veil that conceals the unadulterated psychological storm that silence may cause. This is not an emotional warfare how-to manual. This examines the mechanisms of interpersonal communication, the delusion of control, and the perilous realm that arises when one stops speaking. We will investigate the destructive effects of quiet, what it tells us about our relationships, and how to deal with its fallout without severing the bond you're attempting to comprehend. The alluring falsehood of the silent solution is covered in Section 1. Let's be truthful, the promises have been splattered all over the internet. The striking titles that provide a straightforward yet effective fix for a difficult, unpleasant issue. Keep quiet and observe her running. Avoiding contact is the best way to restore control. She loses her mind when you stop talking. These words give you a sense of control while you feel completely helpless, which is why they are seductive. The notion that you may change the course of a relationship by doing nothing is nearly too wonderful to be true when you feel ignored, insulted, or invisible in your own relationship. It promises a magic bullet, a key that opens someone else's head and enables you to view their actual emotions and manipulate them as you see fit. It is hoped that your silence will force them to admit their secret affection to you, acting as a truth serum. You are reframed in this story from the pursuer to the pursued, from the seeker to the reward. However, this is the first and most important reality that we must acknowledge. This oversimplification is both alluring and risky. You are being sold a fiction by the script that claims that your quiet will inevitably lead to someone else going insane. Although some people experience severe anxiety when they pull back, these reactions are by no means typical and are most definitely unpredictable. Machines are not human beings. You can't anticipate a consistent output of desperation by simply entering silence. Numerous factors greatly influence the response you receive: her self esteem, your shared past, her attachment style, and the particulars of your most recent interaction. So, why does this concept appeal to us so much? Because it addresses one of our most profound anxieties, the anxiety of being unimportant. Her silence seems like evidence that you are unimportant when you feel ignored. The natural tendency is to reverse the situation, to demonstrate your significance with the very instrument you are afraid of. A reaction, any reaction, is evidence that you are important. Therefore, you want to see one. Her panic serves as proof of your significance. Your value is determined by her concern. At this point, we have to make a very clear distinction between two very different actions: withdrawing strategically in order to protect oneself and using silence as a weapon. The majority of relationship gurus and therapists will tell you that stonewalling, the deliberate use of silence to punish or dominate a partner, is not a good tactic. It is a type of passive violence that can cause serious harm by undermining confidence and fostering a fear-based atmosphere. That is the weapon of silent treatment. Its purpose is to inflict mental distress in order to compel obedience. However, some people strategically withdraw in order to protect themselves. Punishing the other person is not the goal here. It's all about self defense. It's about removing yourself from a relationship that is depleting or treating you disrespectfully. It all comes down to declining to be involved in a one-sided relationship. Here, the weapon itself is not the reason for the stillness. Rather, it is the result of your new boundaries. The objective is for you to regain your sanity, not for her to become insane. We will dissect the psychological phases of her possible response as we proceed, not to manipulate them like a villain in a movie, but to comprehend the deep emotional dynamics at work. The first step in determining whether you want to initiate this storm, weather it, or simply leave the shore completely is to understand it. The pattern break and first bewilderment are covered in Section 2. It doesn't get off to a spectacular start. The process begins with a silent, eerie pause. We are all fundamentally machines that recognize patterns. Our brains are designed to make predictions about the future based on past events. This pattern is frequently a steady low-level stream of digital connections in a modern relationship, a random meme, a good morning SMS, a predicted response in a matter of minutes, or perhaps an hour or two. This beat turns into the connection's subliminal pulse. Then you halt. She texts someone, "Hello, how are you today?" Delivered, reads the receipt. The minutes pass, 3, 15, and an hour. Her brain first functions like brains do. It looks for the most sensible and non-threatening answers. This is the phase of rationalization. She has a quiet inner monologue. Most likely he's in a meeting. He has his phone set to quiet. He's behind the wheel. He will respond to me. These straightforward situations maintain the sense of order in her universe. There is a slight indication that something is a bit out of schedule, but no alarm has been raised yet. However, that open loop continues to exist as long as there is quiet. The Zeigarnik effect is one theory that some psychologists may use to explain what follows. As the original script correctly points out, this is hypothetical. According to the theory, our brains retain incomplete tasks far better than completed ones. A closed loop is a responded text. An unaddressed text is a task that is obviously open and requires attention. It only nibbles at the corners of your thoughts. The simple justifications begin to seem tenuous as the hours stretch into a day. The quiet begins to carry weight. It's more than just not responding anymore. It seems to be a reaction unto itself. She begins to feel pulled by the Hoover you've generated, and her mind races to fill it with stories in an attempt to make sense of the emptiness. This is the genesis of self-doubt. She switches from saying, "He's busy," to saying, "I did something." The mental analysis starts. She goes back and reads your most recent exchange. Did I say something about her friend? Was that joke a failure? Did I come across as too eager or too aloof? Now, every phrase and emoji gets scrutinized again in a harsh light. She's looking for an explanation, a mistake she committed that would account for this abrupt deviation from the norm. This initial phase of uncertainty is crucial. It's then she notices that the earth beneath her feet is a bit less firm. You haven't acted aggressively. You haven't initiated conflict. You've just ceased fulfilling your role. Your piece has been removed from the board. You had her look at the blank area and consider the entire game by doing this. The quiet isn't meaningless, it's a mirror, and at the moment, it's making her examine her own actions and presumptions. This is only the start. A slow leak in the dam is the source of the confusion. The impending deluge is the source of the anxiety. The increasing tide of concern is covered in Section 3. The first 24 hours are over. Those rational justifications have vanished. The phase of composed reasoning is over. Greetings from the Rising Anxiety title. At this point, your silence is interpreted as an emotional declaration rather than a practical issue. It seems intimate. It is akin to being rejected. Some of the brain's neuronal circuits that are triggered by physical pain can also be triggered by neglect. We interpret being cut off as a threat to our survival since we are social animals. Her nervous system may interpret your silence, which you may interpret as just taking up space, as an actual threat of desertion. The true torment is the uncertainty. She would have something to argue about if you had texted her in rage. She would have something to lament if you had called it quits. However, silence provides no goal, no conclusion, and no information. As a result, the feelings within shift and become anxious. It's critical that you acquire this now. Not everyone has the same response. The degree of this anxiety frequently varies according to an individual's attachment style, which serves as a template for our interpersonal relationships. Your silence may irritate or worry someone with a stable attachment style, but their fundamental feeling of value is unlikely to be undermined. They may simply decide you're a bad communicator and go on. However, your silence is the realization of their greatest nightmare for someone with an anxious attachment style. Their ingrained conviction that they are unworthy of steady love and that abandonment is inevitable is validated by this. Your silence isn't quiet to them. The siren is blaring. Conversely, an avoidant attachment style person may just respond to your silence with their own, starting a feedback loop of distancing that silently terminates the relationship. If worry is present, this is the point at which we begin to view the behaviors of the tests. She believes that she must take action to relieve the awful strain. Since that would show her panic, the test cannot be overt. It therefore appears as a meme related to an inside joke and a low-stakes plausible deniability message. A harmless inquiry. Hello, have you ever seen the show I suggested? Or the standard? My phone was acting weird, just making sure you got my last message. Desperate for a signal, each of these probes is launched into space. Anxiety increases when these questions are met with additional stillness. At this point, the digital forensics develops into a comprehensive examination. She isn't only reviewing your most recent exchange again, she is looking at your most recent active status on Messenger, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Next to your name, a green dot turns into a dagger. He's on the internet. He is not speaking to me while he is online. This marks a sea change. Knowing that you have the option to reply, but consciously choosing not to, turns her concern into the onset of panic. This confirms that the silence was a deliberate act rather than an accident. She may inquire as to whether you have seen her Instagram story. She might examine your post's timestamps. She is collecting information in an effort to create a picture of your life without her. This compulsive search is a last-ditch effort to regain control. In a case where she is also the primary suspect, her quiet has turned her into an emotional detective. The height of panic and despair is in Section 4. We now reach the story's climax, the losing her mind moment, which is what gave this video its moniker. I want to be really clear about this. There is no certainty at this point. You cannot press that button. The spiral just ends for a large number of people, possibly the majority. This is when self-preservation begins. They become irate. They become depressed. They then determine that their tranquility is more important than your attention and leave. Silence is effective, but not in the way a manipulator would like. It just indicates that the link isn't worthwhile. However, in some high-stakes situations, unmanaged anxiety can turn into a full-blown panic attack for some people. The primary emotional brain takes over when the reasoning mind shuts down. The disguises of convincing and casual deniability have vanished. Raw, unadulterated desperation is the reason behind abandoning the testing behaviors. The floodgates open at this point. The texts, in double, treble, and quadruple, they frequently exhibit a sad pattern. First, concern and entreaty. Is everything all right? I'm becoming quite anxious. Just let me know that you're safe, please. The tone then changes to one of rage when those are met with silence. Okay, disregard me. After everything, I find it unbelievable how immature you are acting. Ignore it. This rage is an attempt to regain some semblance of dignity and serves as a defense mechanism. It's a thin shield, though. Anger degenerates into the most vulnerable stage, bargaining and apology, when the silence continues. I sincerely apologize for everything I did. I'll fix it even though I have no idea what it was. Just talk to me, please. I'm unable to manage this. I'll do anything. The loss of control is complete in this state. Your silence has left a psychological void so strong that she feels as though she is becoming extinct. The frantic acts don't make sense. They are the desperate exclamations of a person who is choking on their emotions. She requires an answer. Any answer. Since it at least shows involvement, a negative response is preferable to none at all. Even if it's broken, there is a link. It puts an end to the excruciating uncertainty. Let's not mince words about the sorrow. There is no game here. This can feel like a severe and terrible emotional abandonment to the individual going through it. They may experience psychological instability and a sense of worthlessness as a result of it igniting old concerns. When you take a step back and observe this, you are seeing real human pain. The distinction between a calculated weight and extreme emotional cruelty gets really blurry at this point. It is a great responsibility to realize that you have the ability to make someone feel this way. It compels you to pose a serious query. Even if this is successful, is this the basis upon which you wish to establish a relationship? Silence as a weapon is covered in Section 5. Let's be absolutely clear. The psychological storm we just discussed is a reality to be comprehended rather than a set of rules to be adhered to. It is not a sign of strength to purposefully force someone through those phases in order to achieve your goals. Emotional manipulation is what it is. Complete halt. This is strongly disapproved of by relationship professionals, who frequently refer to it as stonewalling, a destructive approach. This is the point at which we must distinguish between using quiet as a weapon and reserving a good amount of space. From the outside, they might appear to be identical. Although they both include a lack of communication, their intentions are very different. Refusing to participate is known as stonewalling or the punishing silent treatment. Its purpose is to control, discipline, and discipline the other person. You are simultaneously delivering multiple harmful messages when you stonewall someone. You claim that your emotions are so unimportant that they don't even merit an answer. I decide when this conversation is over, is what you're saying. You're stating that your complete cooperation is the cost of my attention. The other person feels helpless and desperate as a result of the vicious power disparity it produces. Strength isn't this. It is a stronghold constructed out of terror. It doesn't foster respect over time. It erodes trust and fosters animosity. Compare that to taking a healthy amount of space. This is not an inability to participate. In order to control your emotions, you temporarily postpone engagement. The goal is to maintain the relationship, not to punish. It's realizing that a discussion has stalled and that carrying on will only make matters worse. There is communication about healthy space. There is a verbal marker included. It sounds like, I can't have a productive conversation about this right now because I'm feeling overwhelmed. We can discuss this again tonight when I have had a few hours to clear my brain. Perhaps what you said upset me a lot. and I need time to think it over before I can reply. Can you see the difference? The first is a door that is locked. The second is a door that has been closed, but will be reopened. The first causes apprehension and doubt. Even in times of strife, the second promotes safety. The first is about exerting control over the other individual. Secondly, self control is important. The alluring myth spread online is that the way to a great relationship is to use manipulative silence to make yourself the object of desire. This is seriously flawed. A partnership isn't one that is based on the worry that one party might end the connection at any time. There are hostages involved. It doesn't promote closeness, it encourages a desperate reliance. Section 6. The real power. Instead of being a hammer, silence is a mirror. Where is the real power then, if using quiet as a weapon is so harmful? All this time, we have been dissecting the effects of your silence on her. Let's change the script now. Making her go insane has nothing to do with the true transformational power of quiet. It's all about giving you the opportunity to discover yours. Silence can be used as a mirror to glimpse the truth rather than as a hammer to break her will. Consider the reasons behind your first silence. You were always taking the initiative, sending 3 SMS to everyone you got in touch with, making all the plans, and investing all of your energy in a dynamic that didn't return much. The tempo and zeal of her responses were correlated with your emotional condition. There is a significant imbalance there. You are mostly acting on yourself when you deliberately choose to stop, not send that follow-up text, and not fill up every blank area. You are deviating from your own pattern of conduct. You're ending the pattern of overinvesting, chasing, and seeking approval. You are compelled to face some difficult but necessary questions in that silence. What would this connection look like without your ongoing support? Is it real? Is there an echo, or is there just silence when you stop speaking? Are you pursuing your own goals and in a relationship with someone, or with the concept of them? This explains the meaning of using quiet as a mirror. The dynamic's realism is reflected in the quiet. The mirror is displaying an unhealthy attachment in you, her, or the codependent dance you two are performing if your disappearance leads to a frenzied, frantic chase. The mirror is telling you that your investment was probably one-sided all along if your absence produces nothing, and if your silence is met with an equally unconcerned silence. It's possible that the relationship you believed you had was a fabrication that you were paying for yourself. This insight is the source of great power. You don't have the authority to force her to text you. It's clarity's power. It's the liberation that results from accepting things as they are, rather than as you would like them to be. Playing a game to win anything is not the point here. It involves developing a degree of self-respect to the point where you are unwilling to try out for a part in someone else's life. You understand that a healthy relationship is a two-way exchange of energy rather than a one-way push. You regain your emotional core when you sit in solitude. You disengage your well-being from your phone's notification chime. You come to accept the silence. You educate yourself that the response of others does not define your value. Your sense of control changes from something external, her responses, to something internal, your own value as a person. How can I make her want me is no longer a question you ask. Is this dynamic what I actually want? You begin to ask. You can hear your own response during the stillness. Now, this is a very complicated subject that touches on some of our most profound fears. Theory is one thing, but putting it into practice is quite another. I want to hand this talk up to you because of this. Have you ever experienced this from either side? Have you been the one to become silent, or have you been the target of an abrupt, overwhelming quiet? How did that experience go? What did it teach you about yourself and, more significantly, about the other person? Leave a comment with your tale. There are simply experiences, not right or wrong responses. Someone else who is going through this right now might find your tale helpful. Please click the like button and subscribe if you're enjoying this more in-depth, candid look at relationships. Every week we delve into these subjects, going beyond the flimsy strategies to the psychological underpinnings of our relationship. The aftermath and the future are covered in Section 7. Let's act out the situation. You fell silent, you persevered, and it paid off. The silence was broken by her. She's back, determined not to lose you, pledging to change, and full of urgency. You experience a surge of approval. You feel strong. Of all the times, this is the most hazardous. You haven't learned anything if you see this as a win and let the old dynamic return. A malfunctioning game has just been reset to a new level. The true problems of respect and communication remain unresolved. They have recently been covered by a crisis. She might be kept in line for a while by her fear of your silence, but fear is not a long-term basis for love. The real intention behind the quiet was to open the door for change. Getting her to text back was never the only objective. The goal was to create a more wholesome dynamic, and additional games cannot make that happen. It needs the one element that the entire experience lacked: honest and straightforward communication. The time to talk is now. From the place of self-respect you found in the silence, not from a place of rage or accusation. This is the time to establish compassionate, unambiguous boundaries. Here is where you state what you need. Direct communication, not more manipulation, is the only long-term solution. This is how it could sound. I feel like I'm not important when I don't hear from you for extended periods of time. For me to feel safe with you, we need to communicate more frequently. Or I thought I was exhausting myself by exerting all of my energy to keep things running. I needed to feel like it was a two-way street for things to function. Keep in mind that these are I comments rather than charges. You never pay attention to me. They are manifestations of your needs and emotions. You're finally having the discussion you ought to have been having all along by applying the clarity you've learned. Even though it was risky, the quiet had a positive function if she was open to working on it. You have your answer, though, if she rejects your emotions or reverts to her old habits. You must now have the fortitude to accept the truth that the quiet conveyed. Thus, we began with a thought-provoking title: She Will Start Going Crazy the Instant You Stop Talking. And as we've seen, this isn't a guarantee. Rather, it describes a possible psychological storm, a spiral of anxiety brought on by a disrupted pattern and the agony of uncertainty. We went through the phases to promote a better awareness of the tremendous power in our communication and its absence, rather than to develop a blueprint for manipulation. We established a clear distinction between the constructive practice of taking space and the poisonous weapon of stonewalling. One concerns punishment. Self-preservation is the subject of the second. One ruins confidence. An attempt to create self-rust is the other. Ultimately, the most important lesson silence imparts to us is not about dominating others. It has to do with listening to ourselves. Your quiet is like a mirror. It reveals the actual character of your relationships. It shows you who is prepared to compromise and who is content to let you go. It makes clear what you can actually put up with. Let that be the last lesson learned. Making her go insane isn't the final objective. It is for your own mental well-being. It's about developing such a strong sense of self-worth that it no longer requires approval from others. Don't try to control her by remaining silent. Use it to develop a foundation of unchanging self-worth, to understand yourself, and to assess the quality of your relationship. because only from that basis can a long lasting, healthy connection truly be established.